Hey guys, again, Music Fan here. It's gonna go on a quick track by track review of Ghost Stories by Coldplay. I have the songs right back here, so let's just go through all these tracks real quick. Opening track, Always in My Head. It really starts off with a very atmospheric and yet very ambient introduction. You have like these very haunting choirs, these haunting voices going on in the first second that you enter this song. And then the rest of the band comes in to perform this song. And um, as I've said in my Coldplay review, this is the sound of this person in this particular narrative, particularly Chris Martin, coming out of the realization that he has lost someone special in his life. And this is the point of where like the initial shock comes in. Like this person found out just the minute before, and he is taking in this realization. And the music here is a lot more brooding. It's a lot more atmospheric in its approach, and is a lot more gloomy in its musicality. But this serves as probably the perfect opener for this particular album. This song sets out the mood. It really presents what the rest of this album is going to sound like, and it does that so perfectly well. And I really love this song. I really think this is great as an opener, and it's a great song. It's a great opener to this album. The second track, Magic, was gonna do a track review of this album, of this song, when it first came out last year, but again I couldn't properly make a track review of that song until now. But Magic is more reminiscent of the Coldplay of old. Has more of that Coldplay band dynamic, even though it's still not a rock emphasis as it is with the old Coldplay. Has more of an electro / hip hop influence to it. And the unique thing about this track is that Guy Berryman, the bass player, starts off this song, which is pretty cool considering that Guy, even though he did have a presence in prior Coldplay albums and songs, like this is one where he really takes the lead this time, and the one that first pushes the song forward. And I think that's really cool and really unique that Chris and the band would let him do that. And I think it's an awesome, great song. Lyrically speaks about Chris Martin trying to tell his lover that it doesn't matter what we go through, I still believe in magic. I still believe in the power of that love possesses, and how two people can humble themselves with this love and this particular relationship. And he still believes in that. And this track, as I've said before in my review, still builds up to a climax. And just when you think it's about to blow up into something spectacular, it takes it right back down into the first the way this track sounds in the first place. And I think that's a kind of a unique dynamic to bring to these songs, which shows how much more careful and how much more restrained Coldplay is in this particular album, with this track in particular. Ink. This song has a little bit more of a Timbaland / Paul Epsworth influence on here. This one is a little bit more hip hop, is a little bit more of a hip hop texture to it, and I love the guitar line that leads into this song. I love the melody of that guitar tone. And Chris Martin compares his lover to a tattoo that he had put on his arm, and how, like trying to leave a person that you love, it's very hard to get rid of. It's hard to get rid of a tattoo, just like it's hard to get rid of a painful breakup, in a sense, or how hard to get rid of a pain of loss of a loved one in this particular sense, even though this track is not about that specifically. I like this song. I really do. I love how catchy this is. I love the passion that Chris Martin sings into this particular track. Also, kind of like the next track, True Love, which also has a very overt Timbaland collaboration, and his influence is present on this track. I definitely love this song because Chris Martin's vocal harmonies here are so emotionally evocative of loss. Like this, his vocal performance on this track is just simply emotive. And Johnny Buckland's guitar solo here is very on key, is very on point with this track, and suits the atmosphere of this song perfectly well. And I really love this song. Midnight. I did talk about this song before in my track review of that particular song I made last year. If you want to check that out, check it on the description box below. But as I said in that track review, this is probably their most Coldplay influenced track ever. It's a track that I believe is the centerpiece of this album the most. Like, this is the most representative of the deepest depths of Chris Martin's despair, and I love this track too. Another's Arms. I did mention that this track is my least favorite. I really, again, has that Timbaland hip hop influence, and even though I do like this particular track, I mean, it's one I don't gravitate to all that well. Oceans. This is by far the most gloomiest and most brooding track on this album. When I hear this track, I think of Chris Martin sitting underneath a street headlight somewhere in the city, and he's just strumming his guitar, singing this song. That's what I get from this song. This track is just simply an acoustic guitar and Chris Martin accompanying it, and you have these little itty bits of electronic beeps going around with this particular track that really brings this brooding atmosphere of this particular track. And it's pretty haunting, but at the same time it really displays a genuine intimacy from Martin, and that's why I really like this track. And the segue between this track and Sky Full of Stars is definitely awesome. I definitely love the segue, the instrumental segue between Oceans and Sky Full of Stars. And Sky Full of Stars, I say, is one of my favorite Coldplay songs ever. It's a collaboration between Chris Martin, Coldplay, and French house producer Avicii. And even though musically it may not conform to the brooding natures of all these other songs, this track still brings this album, when you take the other tracks in consideration, into a complete zenith, a complete climax, when the central character realizes that he can't let these feelings get to him. He has to overcome these feelings of loss, of self-doubt, and overcome them. And this is the point where he does. Musically, it's a lot more of a dance influence track, and maybe aligns more with Milo's Xyloto than all the other songs off of here. But it's still a phenomenal song. I love the lyrics to this song, because you're a sky full of stars, you're such a heavenly view. Such beautiful imagery within the lyrical writing of this track. Like, Chris Martin really went out of his way to pen. He's penned beautiful lyrics before, and this track is no different. The lyrics here are no different. These are one of his most beautiful penned lyrics, and I definitely love it. And this album ends off with a piano ballad, Oh. Really ends off kind of like a very more intimate way. It doesn't end off with a bang. It ends off with a reflection. And he looks up to the sky and see these birds flying overhead, and maybe someday I'll fly with you. And it's such a self-accepting way to end this album, and probably the most moodiest. It's not even moody. It's kind of more a reflective optimism, and still wishing the best for this person, but still moving on with your life. And ends off with the same way that Always in My Head starts off, with that instrumental passage with the haunting vocal choirs and the dark synth the gloomy synths of this album, and it ends off with, and the album finishes quietly. And what else can I say? This is probably one of my favorite Coldplay albums in their catalog. And even though this won't be remembered that well, I definitely will still remember this album for many, many years to come. So it's been a track-by-track review of Ghost Stories. Tell me what you think. What's your favorite song? What's your least favorite song? And I will see you later, Mr. Music Fan. Take care.